Guys, how many, can I see the beers? How many of you holding beers? All right. My job just got a lot easier. So my name is Matt Epstein. I head up marketing for a company called Zenefits. We're an all-in-one HR platform that basically does all the administration work that, if you're founders, you hate doing, payroll, benefits, the whole nine. And before I get going, I'd like to give a quick shout out. My dad flew all the way up from Florida. Dad, can you raise your hand? Back there, way back. He knew he'd make me nervous, so he sat back there. All right, stand up. They're pressuring you. There we go. Yeah, so fingers crossed I don't turn this into a total train wreck. Yeah, so how many of you have heard of Zenefits? One more raise of hands. Wow, I need a raise. I didn't realize I was doing my job that well. So we have obviously gone from 0 to 21 million, and now even further than that, and it's been a pretty crazy ride. So for those of you who haven't heard about us, I'd like to just kind of talk about our growth, because I think it lends a lot of credibility to my fuck-ups, and I think you'll take them a lot more seriously. So let's keep going here. So this is our ARR. So we were founded in 2013, ended that year, I think, something like $1 million. 2014 went from about $1 million to a little over 21 million. And this year we're on track to go from 21 million to over 100 million. And this isn't a pissing contest, but if it were a pissing contest, fairly confident it would make us one of the fastest, if not the fastest growing SaaS companies ever. So hopefully that gives me some street cred. And in terms of headcount, so I was the first employee that started working at Zenefits. Started in Parker's Kitchen, slowly took over all of Phil's and Mission. Like literally the whole coffee shop hated us because we literally created our office in there. Then actually got an office on Mission, the one on the left, and now we have one on Fremont and Harrison. So it went from let's just call it 10 people to a little over probably 1,000 now in 2.5 years, which is pretty fast. And as you can imagine, that type of growth can turn anyone bipolar. And I have had the lowest of lows. I have literally had moments where, testing a new campaign, get the results back, it doesn't work, and I literally just get up and I'm like, why, this guy, why are you not generating those leads? If you don't know Rage Faces, that was a totally unfunny joke. And I've done campaigns that were, incredibly successful, and again, literally stand up and like Fred Mercury and I look crazy because I'm the only one standing doing this in a sea of no one. So, all that taken into account, I have unfortunately learned a whole lot more from my fuck-ups than I have, and my failures than I have my successes. But fortunately for you guys, you can learn those lessons without having to do it yourself. And I actually, I was in a Lyft with a chatty Cathy. I'm not a big talker, and this particular Lyft driver, really liked to talk. But he had this one, he's like, where are you going? And this is a true story, happened on the way here. I'm like, I'm actually giving a speech about things I've done really bad in my career. And he's like, oh, well, there's a saying where I come from where, and I don't even know if this is actually true or he just heard it on TV. But he basically said, the smart man learns from his mistakes and the wise man learns from other people's mistakes. And I was like, whoa, Lyft driver just dropping some philosophy on me. And that was pretty cool. I was like, that's how I should have opened, so that's how I'm going to open. So kind of without further ado, I'm going to get into those lessons. They're not, a lot of this stuff has been quantitative. This is all very qualitative, and it honestly applies to a lot more than marketing, but it's shaped the way that I've really managed a lot of the marketing at Zenefits. So the first thing we did wrong was we stopped doing things at scale. So Y Combinator or a lot of incubators always teach you, from a product perspective, do things that don't scale. But they don't really say that for a marketing perspective, but it actually holds true. So one of the things that I learned very early on was this lesson. And so how that came about was we had this email nurturing campaign, hugely successful, was 60% of our revenue, something crazy like that. And it was like this amalgamation of tons of dynamic content that was actually like custom scraped. And was going great, and one day Parker comes up to me and goes, great, now we're going to go from like 3 salespeople to 10 or something like that. And you need to scale this email campaign. So now let's do every industry, every vertical. And I literally looked at him and I was like, oh my God, mother of God. Like there's no way I can scale this campaign. There's just way too much, customization. And so I obviously took, the wussy route and immediately created a universal template that worked across everyone. Like, good job, Matt, I did it. Except it turns out it performed terribly because it had none of the things that made it awesome. And so 2 weeks go by, Parker goes, great, how you doing? And I showed him the results, and he was like livid. He's like, what happened to that awesome template? And I explained to him, it can't be done. Like, I can't scale that thing. And he's basically like, Parker doesn't deal with no's very well, which is how you get to 21 million and then 100 million. And so what he said was, you're going to figure out how to do a new industry tonight, and then you're going to scale it. And I was like, okay, I guess that's what I'm going to do. So I made it work for the architecture industry, and lo and behold, did the same thing, worked incredibly well. And so then I spent all my time on scaling it, and started with Odeskers, and now, even today, 2.5 years later, it's grown into, I think it's over 100 people in the Philippines pulling all this custom data. We have engineering resources behind it, and we've scaled it into like this massive thing. It's now obviously not as large a percentage of our revenue. But what I learned from that is you should never let your limitations limit you. And the goal is to get things to work first and then worry later. And so the idea here is do the most creative thing possible to get business. So if it's sending a cupcake with a handwritten letter and that gets you leads, do that. And if it works, figure out a way to scale it. Maybe the CAC doesn't work, so get like tinier cupcakes. You know what I mean? Or send bigger, there's always a way to scale things with enough time, money, and creativity. So that was one of the interesting things I learned and changed a lot of the way I manage stuff. The second thing is we listen to each other, which is a terrible mistake. Never listen to your coworkers. I'm going to tell you right now why that is 9 times out of 10 a terrible idea. So we did this outbound sales development thing. For those of you who don't know, sales BDRs, SDRs, they're people who cold call in SaaS companies. And we had just, the email thing was doing great, time to find a new channel. So I basically took some of the inbound SDRs, made them outbound, and we started testing it. And went from 3 SDRs to 5, and along the way, everyone's high-fiving each other. The managers, the SDRs, they're like, this is doing great. And I'm like, you don't say? That is awesome. This is great. Yeah, let's keep doing this. And even the data from a very high level looked good. Although it turns out 8 months later, this is 2014, it turns out that 30% of their demos actually were coming from basically a segment that we didn't really want to go after. And so what that really fucked us on was our hiring model, because we had basically planned out 2 years of hiring on an attainment number that was wrong. And so it put us behind on hiring, which we're basically just over that hump now, but it was a totally unnecessary screw-up. And so what I learned from that, I get most of my inspiration from Notorious B.I.G. Instead of cream, it's dream, so data rules everything around me. And the goal there is you should honestly, and the one thing I've learned is you should start and end a conversation with data. It's fine if you want to have qualitative conversations in between, but anything outside of that, people don't lie. They just think that they feel something. There was 10 responses in the inbox. Great, we sent out 10,000 freaking emails. And so people just generally think something is going poorly or badly, and oftentimes they're just wrong, myself included. Parker called me out on this. Parker, by the way, is our founder. Called me out on this a bunch, so this is actually something I learned from him. So don't listen to your coworkers. Third thing is we set achievable, realistic goals, which, and again, you only learn this stuff when you're when you're going at scale so fast, because all this stuff on the surface just doesn't sound like it should be this way. The problem with realistic goals is, so our first year, Parker set a goal of, I honestly can't remember now, but we missed it by a little. 2014, day one of the year, Parker comes in. He goes, great, we're going to 10 million. I was like, whoa, buddy, we're only at $1 million. That's pretty aggressive. But I kind of felt like I could do it. I felt confident, so I said, okay. Next day he comes in, sits me and Sam Blond, our VP of Sales down, really, really awesome guy, incredible sales leader. And he goes, okay, I kind of changed my mind. We're going to 20 million. And I literally turned into like a Days of Our Lives episode. I cried, I yelled, I threw things, I stamped my feet. I literally like 30 minutes of like me throwing a temper tantrum, because no one's ever, I didn't know any recent company who did that. We were like a ragtag bunch who had no idea what we were doing in an office in the Mission. I think we were like 15 people at the time. And so what happened was we not only met goal that year, we actually exceeded it. And I learned two things from that. Oh, I totally missed this slide. So anyways, when he told me, that's exactly what I felt like. So the thing here is the stretch goal is always the goal. And this applies to probably everyone in the room. You could be on product, you could be on marketing, you could be a founder. And there's two things to take away from this, which is on the stretch goal side, can I see who here actually has ever set a stretch goal? Okay. Sorry. Bad news, it's a bad idea. And here's what I learned from stretch goals. People hit the goal and they go, well, we didn't hit the stretch goal, but we hit the goal. Pretty, not bad. The other thing I realized is the goal you set, people, no matter what it is, people come in a little below, on it, or a little above. And so when you don't say stretch, you just say this is the goal and you're adamant about it, even if you fall short, so even if we fell short by millions and we only got 15 million, the odds were much higher that even if we blew out 10 million, we only hit 11 million. And so this still, even today I sometimes don't follow this, so we're throwing our first event, probably not this big, and I was telling Parker, I think, confident we can get 75, I think that's an aggressive goal. And he goes, you're going to get 125. And I was like, great. And what happens in all these situations, and what happened in that time when Parker told me that we're doing something ridiculous, is after he calmed me down and petted my head and like got me to stop crying, what he did what he said was, well, what in a world where it could happen, what would you do? Just theoretically, if you had all the money in the world. And I was like, well, and I was like really angry. I was like, I need a Salesforce person. I need like an automation person. I need like 12 SDRs. Blah blah. And he's like, well, why don't you do that? And I was like, shit. And in literally like 30 minutes, I'd gone from being like, there's no way this thing is possible, to signing up for a goal that was like ridiculous. And I think if you do that with your teams, if you do that with your company, if you do that with your demand gen, I think you'll often find when you're put in a pressure cooker and like your back's against a wall, you do things that you didn't think you do. Whereas when you're kind of on this nice, comfortable ride to the top, you don't have that same pressure. So the fourth thing is we hired people when we needed them. This one was bad. So I only made it once, though. So the thing I realized about hiring people when you need them is that it's always too late. So an example of this is back during the email thing. I knew we were going to need a Marketo guy. I knew we were going to need an email guy. And automation and all that stuff. But I was like, you know what, I'm hacking it together, I'm making it work. And so I went a really long time without getting it. And like all of the accelerators in our company, it usually starts with Parker walking in the room saying, I want 10x of something. And so he said, I want 10x of something. And it was the email, and I realized, oh crap, I need someone. And at that time, the moment you need someone, guess what? It's going to take 2-3 months to find that person. It's going to take weeks to negotiate with that person. Then they're going to need 2 weeks to leave their company unless you're really good. And then by the time they get in the seat, now they're going to be setting everything up, and you've literally just lost like 4 months. And so this can literally, if you're a startup and you're trying to show traction, people in the very beginning make or break your company. And if you don't have the person that you absolutely need in that seat when the time comes, you're basically done, because 4 months are going to go by, and you're kind of screwed. So that one leads into my next one. So what you can learn from it, hire people that you're going to need 3 months from today. So the next one kind of ties into that. And it's probably my biggest fuck up of all of these because it's also the most recent. Okay, and so what happened here was we had done this outbound SDR thing, and it was awesome. We were just like enamored with it. Like all the SaaS metrics were perfect. You hire one of these guys and you get X amount of demos in return. All you got to do is hire more of them. And so I just put all my team's energy, all my energy into this one channel. And we grew it from, I think, 2 SDRs to today it's a little over, I don't know, it's probably over 100 or something like that. And it was great, but again, all great accelerators come from Parker walking in a room saying 10x. And so we had to do that same type of momentum play. And I had only had these 2 channels. I had email and I had this SDR thing. And I had realized I had not spent the last 18 months, or whatever it was, 8 months, looking for all of these other levers to pull. And that again, it's sort of like the hiring thing. It puts you in a delay that you don't want to be in. And so what I learned is and this should really only be 2 people. It's either you have someone who's leading growth or it's your VP or director or CMO of marketing. What I learned is marketing is a rolling stone. So marketing's job, at least our marketing, because we're very demand gen focused, is to find the lever that works. And as soon as it shows signs of being scalable, you get someone on that lever and move on to finding the next lever. And so to make up for this mistake, even today, if you're looking for a job, come see me. We're very quickly growing the team to basically be able to pull 20 levers at once, so we never find ourselves in a situation again where we get sucked up by the gravity of one channel that's working really well. So that is it. Those are all my mistakes. I've lifted my dress and shown you all the bad stuff. So please learn from this and don't do this yourself because I promise you it really is bad in the moment. So to recap the 5 things, don't let your limitations limit you. Get things to work first in whatever way possible. Figure out the scaling part later. You're all smart people. I know you guys could figure it out. On the data side, always lead and end with data. Never set stretch goals. Just set really, 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 really ridiculous goals. Hire for what you need in 3 months. And marketing always needs to be moving on to the next best thing. And good marketing is, always having 20 balls in the air, not just getting one really giant ball. So that's it. Any questions? I don't know. Do we have time for questions?
Accelerates things for you as a marketer.
I agree. And I don't know if a lot of you guys know us. I could probably be terrible at my job and still do pretty good. So we have a lot of cards stacked in our favor. We're free. We don't have contracts, and we connect with your current systems. So all the things that slow down a SaaS cycle don't really slow us down. So in defense of all of you, have much harder jobs. Yeah.
Yeah, I was wondering how much that screwed up because you can't look at it with the traditional marketing eye because of what you just said, right?
Yeah.
So I wonder if now, you've changed how you look at things because of the equation is so different.
So I think, one of our investors who have been really great to us has been Andreessen Horowitz. And I'll never forget the first thing they told us 2.5 years ago was your greatest challenge is just getting this thing in front of people, because once they see it, it's just like a no-brainer. And so that's why marketing has always been very demand gen focused, because our goal as a company is just to get this thing in front of as many people as possible. And so I look for those big levers that can get us in front of tens of thousands of people. I mean, I think this month we'll probably do, 6,000 demos or I don't know, something. It's a lot of people. I remember in the very beginning when I looked at the plan and Parker said we're going to have to do 1,000 demos a month. I was like, I don't even think there's that many companies in the United States. I was literally convinced there wasn't even that many companies. So it totally changes the way that you do things. And obviously we're SMB, not enterprise, which also completely changes things. Yeah.
So I got an email from Parker around a year ago, and we got in a conversation, and I asked him, we don't need this right now, but
It depends sometimes. A lot of the time it really is Parker. Sometimes it goes to secretary, something. But yeah, I mean, if it was a year ago, it was probably actually, then yeah, it was probably definitely Parker. Now I mean, we've tested things from other people and stuff like that, but yeah.
And yeah, right over here.
You guys had no questions 2
I
seconds
have a
ago.
question. Where's your app? Okay. Beyond like generally demand gen, like what's the one specific thing that you think you're best at that really helped Zenefits succeed?
I would probably say just being scrappy and creative. We have 1,000 people. I'm tripling my team now, but our team is only like 7 or 8 people. That's a 1,000-person company. I think that's one of the downsides of being scrappy and creative, is that you don't probably lean on people as much as you should. Yeah.
So you mentioned you want to hire people 3 months ahead of when you actually need them. I've also heard other people say that one of the greatest dangers in startup is scaling a little too early, especially around your team, because you're making assumptions on what you're going to need in 3 months. So how do you balance that? Like, what do you think? How do you think about it?
I think about it in terms of impact. So I knew email would be huge for us. So it was like a no-brainer. Now, if you don't have the time, I mean, we also had the resources. So if you don't have the resources, you just need to make that call of, I mean, and there's also other options. You could maybe like get an agency or a contractor to keep the thing running until you get someone in-house. But you just need to make sacrifices and decide what are those things early on that's going to get you the hockey stick. And if one of those is like the answer, then my answer would always be do it early. I mean, because if you're a startup, you know, your chance to prove yourself is fairly short because investors look for growth and they look for it fairly soon. So it's sort of like, what have you got to lose? If you've been around and you're just kind of going like this, then you're in for like a rough ride, and you may as well throw everything at it as soon as you can. But this is just me. May not be the best advice. Yeah.
Should I switch from Zen Payroll to Zenefits?
Glad you asked. We work together. So we actually sync with Zen Payroll. So if you have Zen Payroll, you could just sync it with Zenefits. And then, for instance, when you hire an employee, we automatically update all your deductions, enroll everyone on benefits, and like add the deductions to Zen Payroll. We work with them. Okay, sorry. I know HubSpot's up. Cool. Thank you all.